Is it a trauma response or a personality trait? What even is a trauma response? I want to talk about that tonight. My name is Autumn, and I'm writing my memoir and getting ready to release it. And so I'm talking about some of the things that I deal with and how I deal with them and cope with. I come from a long line of child abuse and neglect and deep-seated trauma that has been generational. And so I want to talk about what trauma responses are. Trauma responses break down into 4 basic categories: fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. Fight is like when you have very aggressive anger. It comes out of everywhere, every side that you can imagine, every orifice. It's just anger. You are just super angry. Flight is when you want to avoid things and you want to run. Like anytime anything happens, you want to run. And freeze is disassociating, depression, not being able to move because of what's going on around you. And fawn, which is one that nobody talks about very often, is people-pleasing, over-apologizing. Fawn gets talked about less because it's extremely common in people who grew up with unpredictable or abusive environments. In my early 20s, I had a lot of destructive behaviors, and I understood them to be personality traits or dysfunctions that I just had to live with, that they were just a part of me. They were who I was. And everything that happened to me made me stronger, made me the person I am today. And this is just how I am. I am going to butt heads and fight and be very aggressive with everything I do because I have to fight, right? So it wasn't until I started unpacking those behaviors with a therapist and with group therapy, I started unpacking the things I didn't like about myself or that I thought were personality traits, and discovered they're really just trauma responses and totally changeable. That changed everything for me and allowed me to really understand who I was and what I could become if I started to unpack that trauma and what the trauma was actually doing to me, which was a lot. Unpacking all of that trauma and understanding the coping mechanisms that I had developed because of the trauma and what it was affecting in my life, and being able to understand that and to rearrange things in my head and under my brain and unlearn some of those coping mechanisms that were so very destructive to me in my daily life as an adult, because they don't work when you're a grown-up. You know, those coping mechanisms you developed as a child in an abusive situation, they don't work as you grow older, but they will be there as you grow older. So you have to unpack that. You have to look at them. You have to get really honest with yourself and say, maybe it's time to get some therapy. Maybe it's time to go to a 12-step meeting. Maybe it's time to do some journaling, look at myself, ask myself some questions, some hard questions that I want real honest answers for. The other thing that I found really fascinating about understanding what trauma responses were and what those dysfunctional behaviors were from myself, it allowed me to see people in a different way. When people were displaying those types of behaviors, I realized that I could be empathetic as opposed to judgmental and feeling like they've harmed me or done me wrong. When I understood when those behaviors were coming from, and I could start to identify other people that were having similar issues in their life and dealing with the effects of childhood trauma in their adulthood. So I think it's really important that we educate ourselves and dig deep and be honest. Thank you so much for listening. If I've said anything that helps anybody else, that's my whole goal, is to make somebody feel not alone.